From the Cronkite studios in downtown Phoenix, this is Cronkite News.
So it's simply trying to define better why women are having an abortion.
This is a classic situation of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
More debate and a delay over a controversial abortion bill, what it could mean for women in Arizona.
Plus, part of the budget battle in Washington is over government funding for community health centers here at home.
And veterans in Arizona are finding new places to call home, but they're a bit smaller than you'd expect.
Cronkite News starts now.
Good evening and welcome to Cronkite News on Arizona PBS. I'm Nicole Costantino.
And I'm Gabriel Gamino. Thank you for joining us.
A new bill in the Arizona legislature would require doctors to ask patients who want abortions why they're getting one. Cronkite News reporter Jamie Fossenkemper is in the broadcast center to explain this piece of proposed legislation. Jamie?
Senate Bill 1394 has support in both chambers of the legislature. Its goal is to require doctors who perform abortions to obtain the reason for the abortion. But some are pushing back against the bill.
This is a classic situation of a wolf in sheep's clothing.
Jody Liggett from Planned Parenthood of Arizona is adamantly opposed to SB 1394. If passed, doctors would have to indicate why their patients choose to undergo abortions. They would need to cite a specific reason, including economic reasons. The pregnancy was a result of rape or incest or relationship issues, among others.
This is a continuation of trying to erode the rights of women to make choices for themselves.
1394 doesn't just allow doctors to kind of, interrogate patients as to their reasons for abortion. It actually compels them to.
But Kathy Herod from the Center for Arizona Policy thinks this bill will make it easier to acquire data about abortions in our state.
It's simply trying to define better why women are having an abortion, exactly what complications may be occurring from abortions, and that will enable, regardless where you are on the issue of abortion, but policymakers, healthcare professionals, pro-life and pro-choice people to better meet the needs of women.
If the woman refuses to answer, the doctor must indicate that on the report back to the health department, which Liggett says creates more problems for women than less.
Something that sounds like a regulation that is intended to protect women's health and safety actually does the opposite.
However, Herod feels that the information that would be provided would benefit women.
Data is always good in any area, but especially in the healthcare field, to understand what's happening and how to better serve women.
Current law requires doctors to report to DHS if an abortion is, quote, elective or due to maternal or fetal health considerations. The bill was scheduled to be heard by a Senate committee yesterday, but was held. And Cronkite News wants to hear from you. We have a poll on Twitter, and we're seeking your opinion on our Facebook post on this abortion bill. You can also track the bill's progress in our continuing coverage on cronkitenews.azpbs.org. Jamie Fossenkemper, Cronkite News.
Lawmakers are hoping to pass a budget deal with a funding measure to prevent another government shutdown tonight. But Arizona Senator Jeff Flake is already planning to vote no.
Now, I love bipartisanship, but not when it's bought and paid for with billions of taxpayer dollars. That's precisely what this measure does. You sprinkle enough money around, you can get bipartisan support.
GOP leaders want an extra $300 billion over the next 2 years for the Pentagon and domestic programs. But Democrats who wanted to use the budget deal to find a solution to DACA oppose this plan. House Speaker Paul Ryan says he supports a DACA deal, but not until the budget is passed.
To anyone who doubts my intention to solve this problem and bring up a DACA and immigration reform bill, do not. We will bring a solution to the floor, one that the president will sign. We must pass this budget agreement first, though, so that we can get on to that.
This deal would also spend more on infrastructure and the opioid epidemic.
For some immigration advocates from Arizona, however, the promise of a vote is not enough. They want to see action now. Cronkite News reporter Ariana Bustos was with them as they took their case to Democratic lawmakers on Capitol Hill today.
Phoenix dreamer Karina Ruiz says she's had enough of promises.
They keep saying we'll do it next week. By next week, there's going to be many families that are going to be separated. And they could prevent it by simply demanding that there is a solution for immigrant youth. They've been saying it. Well, we're tired of words. They need to show it with their actions.
Senator Chuck Schumer urged fellow Democrats today to pass the budget deal now and take up immigration next week. In the House, leaders are insisting on a budget vote before any DACA debate. That sparked an 8-hour floor speech yesterday by House Minority Leader Nancy Pelosi, who demanded a DACA vote now.
It's not just 8 hours for us, it's our whole lives that are at risk right now. So we're coming here to share our stories and to make sure that the Democrats do what they promised us back in September, which is hold the line unless this budget deal has the DREAM Act.
Organizer Bruna Buhid says her group focused today on Democrats to ensure they stand with Pelosi and oppose any bill that doesn't include a DREAM Act. Ruiz says Democrats have to take a risk and that sometimes it takes sacrifices.
Today is my son's birthday, 16th birthday, and I'm not with him. I'm here, fighting, because it breaks my heart to think that I won't be able to be another birthday with him.
The sit-ins are expected to continue for just over 8 hours today, the same amount of time Pelosi spent speaking on the House floor. Budget votes are not expected until late tonight. Reporting from Washington, Ariana Bustos, Cronkite News.
Earlier this week, the House passed a resolution to fund the government until March 23rd, a measure that includes funding for community health centers for the next 2 years. Shelby Lindsay in our D.C. Bureau reports on the lasting impact of this bill.
With over 600,000 patients and 2 million visits a year, advocates say community health centers have a huge impact in Arizona, not only for patients, but the entire state.
But people throughout Arizona will be impacted because of the stress on hospitals, the stress on provider network, and right now we have a lack of both of those structures in Arizona, and the cost factors of health insurance would also go up.
O'Halloran is concerned because funding is scheduled to dry up by the end of March, and health centers are facing a 70% cutback in program funding during the worst flu season in recent history. Daniel Hawkins, vice president of the National Association of Community Health Centers, said the centers provide excellent care to local communities.
They do great work. They keep people healthy on the job. They keep kids healthy and in school. And they contribute to their local community and economy through that.
A bill that passed in the House is a 2-year fix, but Hawkins and O'Halloran said they are looking for long-term funding to give assurance to providers. Under the House bill, health centers will receive roughly $4 billion a year to continue funding the roughly 1,400 health centers across the nation.
So that the health centers will be able to have the security and the certainty to know that they can go on providing that care without danger.
Today we want to make sure the message goes loud and clear. The 2-year continuation of funding is not enough. We have to have a permanent structure.
But the vote now going to the Senate is facing an uncertain future. In Washington, Shelby Lindsay, Cronkite News.
The ongoing budget debates aren't helping the markets either. Today, the Dow took another huge tumble. The Dow finished the day 1,032 points to close at just under 24,000. That's the lowest point for the Dow since late November. It's down 10% below the record high it set just 2 weeks ago. Immigration and Customs Enforcement, commonly known as ICE, can now use license plates when gathering information for their investigations. ICE officials say they will use a license plate reader database, but the information will not be made public.
Although it can feel like Arizona traffic is getting worse, according to an annual traffic report card from INREX for 2017, Phoenix is ranked 25th in the nation for traffic congestion. That's a drop from 19th place in 2016. Phoenix is also ranked 28th in North America and 140th internationally. Los Angeles has been ranked #1 for the worst traffic for the last 6 years.
A new study found that drowsy drivers are causing more crashes on the road than previously believed. AAA released video of these drivers reacting when they wake up behind the wheel, in some cases after they've already hit another car. According to the AAA Foundation for Traffic Safety, drowsiness plays a factor in almost 10% of severe accidents, 8 times more than previous estimates said.
An effort to get veterans off the streets and put them in tiny houses is underway in South Phoenix. Reporter Emily Richardson was at the site to show us how these homes are coming together.
Building a foundation for a tiny house and for a new life. Build Us Hope is an outreach program providing long-term housing for the homeless. And their latest project, building tiny homes for veterans.
Having an address gives you a sense of identity. It gives you a point where you start your day and a destination at the end of the day. Housing is everything.
This morning, Charlie Ellis and multiple volunteers began laying down the foundation on 3 microhomes near 13th Ave in Buckeye.
This is just one option of ending homelessness amongst veterans by providing housing. That is the solution.
Elizabeth Singleton, founder of Build Us Hope, says she decided to make foundational housing for veterans because while working with the homeless community, she found a high amount of them had served. Their current plot only holds 3 tiny houses, but the goal is to build around 1,200 homes on 98 acres in the valley.
I hope to be the guy who's building all the tiny houses out here with Elizabeth.
Ellis encourages volunteers to come help because he enjoys teaching others.
I love people who don't know what they're doing coming out. They scratch their head by the end of the day. They feel a sense of accomplishment that, wow, I built it.
A lottery system will determine who moves into the first 3 homes.
I'm looking forward to is handing over the keys because that'll kind of bring it full circle.
The first 3 houses should be completed by the end of the month. In Phoenix, Emily Richardson, Cronkite News.
Singleton hopes that Build Us Hope will have enough money to start their next plot in a couple of months. The opening ceremony for the Winter Olympics is just hours away.
But it's been a bumpy road to Pyeongchang.
To athletes of the world, if you're doped, don't even think about coming to the games.
Coming up on Cronkite News, our one-on-one interview with an International Olympic Committee member on the controversy facing these games.
Woodruff, anchor and managing editor of the PBS NewsHour. The journalists of tomorrow face a fast-changing media landscape, but quality news remains vitally important to our communities, our country, and our world. At ASU's Walter Cronkite School of Journalism and Mass Communication, students learn solid, reliable reporting, holding the powerful accountable, and rebuilding the public's trust. The Cronkite School and Arizona PBS, preparing the next generation for a stronger future of journalism.
As journalists at Cronkite News, we report on stories that matter to you by focusing on the local impact. We dig deeper and work tirelessly to keep you informed.
Live in Wickerburg.
Live in Los Angeles. In Cleveland. In Washington. In Louisville.
From Jerusalem.
Live in Philadelphia. From around the world to right here in Phoenix.
At Cronkite News, we report the facts and stick to the truth.
The Pyeongchang Olympics are finally here. The opening ceremony starts early tomorrow morning, but some sporting events have already begun, including curling, figure skating, and freestyle skiing competitions. But there has been Olympic-sized drama going into the games, from officials telling Russia to stay home to a massive sexual abuse scandal involving the team doctor for USA Gymnastics.
Our reporter Troy Lynch caught up with Anita de France, one of the 2 Americans on the International Olympic Committee's executive board, to find out how the IOC is handling it all.
The biggest headline right now is Larry Nassar and obviously the sex abuse scandal and all the women gymnasts who were testifying against him. What was your reaction when you first heard about that?
Oh, I felt sick to my stomach that some monster would be able to be there for so long and to go undetected is just terrible. But one of the things we found is there was no direct way for us to look in and see what was going on. We would rely, and as a woman who's been a part of a team sport, we would really need the athletes to speak up. And it's so sad that it took so long.
In these upcoming Winter Olympic Games, North and South Korea, they're combining for some of their teams. What do you think the significance of that is?
I think it's wonderful. It's hard, I think, for us to understand how it is that 2 cultures who are so similar yet have this divided line, literally a line between North and South, and it's been that way for over half a century now. And it just seems better if they work together. In Pyeongchang, they'll be marching in together, and even taking a step further, the Olympic hockey team, this time we mean women, will actually have some players from the North playing with the team from the South in one literally unified team.
Obviously, Russia hasn't been playing fair last couple of years, the last couple of games, because of all these doping scandals going on, and now they're not even going to be a part of the Pyeongchang Olympics.
No, we had to make it fair for the athletes who competed with integrity. And let me say that what we're saying to athletes of the world, if you're doped, don't even think about coming to the games. We have 10 years to figure it out. We announced, I think it was 3 years ago, actually it was prior to that, it was prior to the Sochi Games, that we would keep the samples, blood or urine, for 10 years, because in that period of time it was likely that we would be able to figure out all of their tricks and be able to say, okay, this test is positive. We'll find out who that was and we'll withdraw the medal or the standing.
France played a big part in helping bring the Olympics back to Los Angeles. In 2028, the Summer Games will return to the United States for the first time since 1996.
Water shortages in Arizona have made it difficult and expensive to irrigate state farmland. Coming up on Cronkite News, we talk with farmers about finding a solution to sustaining Arizona's agriculture.
And these warm temperatures won't be sticking around much longer. I've got your 7-day forecast.
I'm Ted Simons, host and managing editor of Arizona Horizon. Join us each weekday at 5:30 and 10 as we bring you the top newsmakers who impact the state. We cover the stories in depth that shape and affect our local communities, and we take the time to ensure that all voices are equally heard. For more than 30 years, Arizona Horizon has been your voice and your source for what matters most, right here on Arizona PBS.
By the year 2050, there will be more plastic in the ocean than fish. Before Professor Halden, I had an insane amount of passion, but I almost felt helpless because I didn't know how to use it. Professor Halden gave me a chance to make a difference. Being at a place like ASU allows you to take these big leaps. Ultimately, the biggest problems in the world cannot be solved alone.
Arizona Governor Doug Ducey is asking lawmakers to increase funding for fire prevention efforts. The funding would be used to remove brush and other fire hazards. He asked for $1 million, but would like to increase it to $2 million. The U.S. Drought Monitor shows the entire state is in drought.
With looming water shortages in Arizona, farmers are finding it harder to provide the water they need to sustain their land. Cronkite News reporter Nicole Hernandez takes us to one of those farmers.
Close it off. That stops your flow of water and you can move down.
Almost 70% of Arizona's water supply is dedicated to irrigating the state's farmland, but it's still not enough.
The bottom line is we live in a desert. There's just not much water.
And Kaywood Farms in Casa Grande is feeling the effects.
Quite honestly, it sucks.
With current water prices, many farmers cannot provide sufficient water for crop production.
The biggest problem with getting extra water is it's expensive. It's really expensive.
And because the efficient technique of drip irrigation is too expensive to install, farmers are sticking to flood irrigation, a technique that doesn't always use water to its fullest potential.
Years ago, Hartman's almost 700 acres of fields looked just like this, growing healthy. But due to water shortages, a lot of his land is now fallow fields, like the ones behind me, dry and desolate.
One of the major barriers is just a lack of upfront capital to invest in drip irrigation or some other system.
So if a farmer wanted to transition to drip irrigation, subsurface drip irrigation, that's going to be an investment of about $1,500 to $2,000 an acre on top of the existing infrastructure.
Sustaining these farms is no small task, but it's an important one for Arizona's future.
When you pull it off of there, you can feel the seeds in it.
We have some of the highest quality crops that we can produce in the desert Southwest compared to other places.
It's just a matter of balance.
We have that 880,000 acres is in production, but it could be put in fallow, possibly.
Experts say it's critical to find that balance between providing a long-term solution for Arizona's urban and agricultural communities.
A lot of it is going to be coming down to what farmers are able to do, what adaptation measures they're able to take.
But it's not that simple for the everyday farmer.
So, I mean, we try to use and be, stewards of the land and use the water to the best we can. And honestly, if we had the money, we'd do something even more efficient than the flood irrigation we're doing now.
In Casa Grande, Nicole Hernandez, Cronkite News.
Another beautiful day today in the valley, but not so much for the rest of the country. Let's check in with Nicole in the Weather Center.
Yeah, it has been beautiful here in the valley. Let's take a look at our current temperatures across the state. We're going to be at 58 degrees in Flagstaff, 69 in Prescott, 83 in Phoenix, and down south in Tucson. We're going to be at 83. Let's take a look at our highs for tomorrow. 80 degrees here in the valley, 79 in Casa Grande, 82 in Tucson, and 62 in the Grand Canyon. Now I want to take you to where it's not as nice as it is here in the valley. It's in Chicago, which is going to get hit with a major snowstorm at the end of tonight and early tomorrow morning. But after it's all said and done, they're going to get about 8 to 12 inches of snow. So if you have travel plans, please allot for flight delays, or if you have family there, you might want to check up on them after, make sure they're doing okay. For our 7-day forecast, ending out our work week, those high temperatures are finally coming to a close. We're going to start seeing those temperatures drop down back into the low 70s for the start of next week.
Organ donation numbers are up here in Arizona. Cronkite News has an inside look at a life changed by donated organs and the push to help others save more lives.
Cronkite News weeknights at 5 on Arizona PBS. Fridays, it's at Cronkite News, your social sharing connection where you choose the news. Facebook likes and shares, tweets, retweets, and favorites. YouTube views and subscriptions. We're watching you watch us. From our digital home at cronkitenews.azpbs.org to your television, web browser, or mobile device. Find us on Facebook, Twitter, and YouTube. Then join us for At Cronkite News, our weekly refresh, each Friday at 5 on Arizona PBS.
More Arizonans are giving the gift of life. I met with a Valley family who shared their story of a life-saving exchange.
No one thinks anything like this will happen to them.
For many new mothers, the first seconds with your newborn are filled with joy and wonder.
What color is this one?
But for Kaylin Crawford, it was filled with fear and panic.
Our diagnosis has just got worse.
Crawford was halfway through her pregnancy when doctors noticed something was wrong with baby Oliver's heart. He was born 7 weeks premature. Crawford said he came out blue and unresponsive.
I thought this was it. I just lost him.
That's when Oliver was immediately placed on an organ transplant list for a new heart.
His heart was just so weak and so sick. They just weren't sure if we would make it this far.
A donor was found almost immediately, and out of another family's tragedy, a miracle for Oliver. The heart was found to be a perfect match.
We just feel a part of them lives on, and every first walk that Oliver got to take, It was a moment for our donor and their family as well.
Arizona saw a record number of organ donations in 2017 and are up 16% from last year, something Donor Network of Arizona spokesman Nico Santos says can do more than just save lives.
And over the last 5 years, we've seen an increase in the number of lives saved and an increase in the number of people who are deciding to register themselves as organ donors.
More than 700 lives were saved in Arizona last year because of organ donations, the largest Arizona has ever seen. But Santos says this is just the beginning.
Although 701 people are most likely very grateful, and we honor the heroes that donated to them, there's a lot of work to be done still.
It's all in an effort so people like Oliver can have a second chance at life.
Without organ donation, he wouldn't be here with us today.
There are over 2,000 people on the organ donation wait list in Arizona. To register to become a donor, you can go to donatelifeaz.org.
Cronkite News is proud to be the news division of Arizona PBS. Here's what's coming up on Arizona Horizon and the PBS NewsHour.
On the next Arizona Horizon, the Maricopa County Treasurer thinks he can get a 300% return on investments, and he doesn't think he has to give details to the media. And we'll have a conversation with Arizona's Teacher of the Year.
I'm John Yang. On the next NewsHour, could a Senate budget deal avoid another government shutdown for years? That's Thursday on the PBS NewsHour.
That's it for Cronkite News tonight. Thanks for joining us.
For top Arizona stories anytime, go to cronkitenews.azpbs.org.